Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
Hello students, I am Shivika Khurana. Today we will be discussing the first chapter in 10th class, Chemical Reactions and Equations. For your convenience, the chapter is divided into 3 parts. I will be starting with the first part, which has the basic definitions and the concepts. In the second part, we will be discussing the types of reaction, and in the third part, some applications of those reactions. Let's begin with the first part. Chemical reaction is a reaction which is very different from a physical reaction. So, for instance, you burn a paper and you break this marker into smaller pieces. There are 2 different types of reaction. In burning a paper, the paper loses its original properties, and in the second, it does not lose. For instance, if I break this marker into smaller pieces, it will still be not attracted by magnet. It will still have the same color, same properties, but that will not be the case if I am burning a paper. So, to define it, chemical reaction is a process in which a new substance is formed which has new properties. Now, chemical reaction which is there in your book and is also important from examination perspective is burning of a magnesium ribbon. The procedure for this activity is that first of all we take a magnesium ribbon which is around 10 centimeters long. We rub the ribbon with sandpaper because the ribbon is generally coated with a white powdery mass of magnesium oxide. Then hold the magnesium ribbon with the fire tongs and heat its other end with Bunsen flame till it catches fire. Once it catches fire, hold the magnesium ribbon over the glass plate. You observe that the magnesium ribbon burns with a dazzling white flame and forms white residue which falls in the glass plate. Actually, the magnesium ribbon enters into a chemical reaction with oxygen present in the air and forms magnesium oxide. The white powder that you see here is magnesium oxide. So here magnesium reacts with oxygen to form magnesium oxide and releases heat. Following conclusion can be drawn from the activity that magnesium on burning with air forms a new product of magnesium oxide. Initial heating is required to start the chemical reaction. The change proceeds with evolution of heat and light. The change is permanent and irreversible as it is a chemical reaction. So in this activity we learned a property of chemical reaction, that they are often accompanied by release in heat or light. There is a permanent change which is irreversible in nature, and here we saw that from magnesium ribbon being converted into magnesium oxide. Now every time a chemical reaction has occurred, there will be certain features, certain things that will happen that will tell you that this reaction is a chemical reaction. Now we will be discussing those 5 features. The first characteristic of a chemical reaction is change in color. Okay, so change in color. For example, you take a copper sulfate solution, it is blue in color, and you add a piece of zinc metal. What will happen? A new substance of zinc sulfate and copper is formed and copper is replaced. Now this new substance is colorless. So you will know that the solution which was initially blue is now colorless. This indicates that a chemical reaction has occurred. Moving on to the second feature. Second feature is evolution of gas. It means when some gas is created, so you will be able to see it in form of bubbling in the beaker or in the jar in which you are doing the experiment. For instance, in H2SO4, that is sulfuric acid, if we add zinc, hydrogen gas will be released. You will be able to see it in form of small bubbles coming out of the test tube. It is often denoted by an arrow. Arrow means that a new gas is formed and it is coming out. The third type of characteristic which tells us if a chemical reaction has occurred is change in the state of the reactant. So magnesium ribbon was a solid ribbon, and after we burn it, it turns into magnesium oxide, which is a white colored powder. So the state of the compound has changed, and that shows us that a chemical reaction has occurred. Same happens when you're burning a piece of paper. A white piece of paper turns into grey black, which is very light and has different properties. The fourth characteristic of a chemical reaction can be formation of a precipitate. So when we mix two solutions, lead nitrate and potassium iodide, they are two colorless solutions, but once you mix them, grey-black. Rust is iron oxide. A yellow color PPT of lead iodide will be formed. It settles down. That is why it is indicated by a downward arrow. So an upward arrow is for evolution of gas which goes up, and a downward arrow indicates formation of a precipitate which settles at the bottom. This also indicates that a new substance is formed, because initially there was no yellow substance, but now this new bottom layer of yellow substance indicates that a reaction has occurred. The fifth and the final feature is change in temperature. Now change in temperature could mean release of heat also, and it could mean absorption of heat also. In this case, calcium oxide, when added with water, forms calcium hydroxide and heat. Heat is denoted by a triangular shape. So in this reaction, if you're holding the beaker, as you add water to calcium oxide, you'll be able to see that the beaker is turning hot, which indicates that heat is being released in this reaction. Heat can also be absorbed in a reaction, in which case the beaker will turn colder. We will study more in details of the differences of these types in the second part of the lecture. So let us go through these 5 features again: change in color, evolution of gas, change in state, formation of precipitate, and change in temperature. When either of these or even all of these are happening, there can be one or more than one of these features, then it indicates that a chemical reaction has occurred, and that reaction is not of basic physical nature, which is reversible. These reactions are not reversible. Once this has happened, you cannot go back. Okay?